There comes a time in life when you face someone who is determined to break you, not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. They twist your words, manipulate your reality, and make you question your own worth. And the worst part, they do it with a smile. A narcissist doesn't just hurt you, they make sure you believe it's your fault. They want control, and the more they see you struggle, the more powerful they feel. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you've sat in the wreckage of a relationship, a friendship, or even a family dynamic that left you feeling empty, unseen, and unheard. You tried reasoning. You tried loving them harder. You tried proving yourself. And yet, nothing changed. No matter how much you gave, it was never enough. No matter how much you forgave, the cycle continued. So you ask, where is God in all of this? Why does he allow people like this to have influence over our lives? Why does he let us suffer under their manipulation and deceit? But here's what I want you to hear today. God is not absent. He is not blind to your pain. He sees everything, and he is working in ways you cannot yet see. When a narcissist tries to destroy you, they may think they have power, but they don't. God has already written a different ending to your story, one where you are not broken, but restored. Truth has a way of surfacing no matter how deeply it is buried. When a narcissist tries to manipulate, distort reality, and control the narrative, it can feel like the truth is slipping through your finger. They gaslight, they rewrite history, they make you question yourself. They thrive on confusion because confusion gives them power. But here's the thing, lies are heavy and they always collapse under their own weight. Truth, on the other hand, is light and it always rises. At first, it may not seem that way. The narcissist seems to be winning. They twist stories in their favor, convincing others of their version of events. They paint themselves as the victim while making you out to be the problem. It can feel isolating, exhausting, and unfair, but what God does in these moments is something profound. He allows the truth to reveal itself in time, not through force, not through retaliation, but through the natural unraveling of when someone operates in falsehood, they have to keep spinning the web. They have to keep controlling the pieces to maintain their illusion. And no matter how skilled they are, eventually they slip. The inconsistencies pile up. The contradictions become too obvious to ignore. People start noticing the gaps, the cracks in the mask. God does not rush this process, but he ensures it happens. And here's where trust becomes essential. In the moment, it's tempting to fight back, to prove yourself, to force the truth into the light. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step back and allow God to work. He is not asking you to remain silent or to suppress your own reality, but he is reminding you that you do not have to carry the burden of proving what is real. In the book of Proverbs, it says, "The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy." This is not just a moral statement. It is a reminder that lies do not stand the test of time. The narcissist may gain temporary control, but the foundation of their power is built on sand. It cannot last. And when it crumbles, they will be left with nothing but the consequences of their own deception. So what do you do in the meantime? You anchor yourself in truth. You remind yourself that no amount of manipulation changes what is real. You refuse to shrink yourself to fit into their distorted narrative. You keep living, keep growing, keep trusting that what is hidden will be revealed. And while you are focused on healing, on moving forward, on building a life outside of their control, the truth is doing its work. Because truth doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't need validation. It simply is. And when God is on your side, no lie can erase what is real. When someone with narcissistic tendencies enters your life, they don't just cause emotional pain. They create chaos, confusion, and self-doubt. They manipulate situations to make you feel powerless, and at times it may seem like there's no way out. But here's what's critical to understand. God is not absent in these moments. He does not leave you defenseless in the storm. When you're in the middle of the pain, it's easy to believe the narcissist has all the control. Their words cut deep, their actions destabilize, and their ability to twist reality can leave you questioning everything. But while they work in deception, God operates in truth. And the truth is, you are not alone in this fight. You are not at the mercy of their manipulation, and you are not without divine protection. God's protection doesn't always look like immediate escape or instant justice. It often comes in subtle yet profound ways. It comes in the form of discernment. The moment you start recognizing red flags you once overlooked. It comes in the form of inner strength, the kind you didn't think you had but suddenly find rising within you. It comes in the form of people, those who show up with support, guidance, and wisdom when you need it most. Sometimes God's protection is in the removal of someone from your life, even when you weren't ready to let go. A relationship ends, a betrayal is revealed, or a situation forces distance between you and the person trying to control you. In the moment, it might feel like devastation, but in hindsight, it becomes clear that was grace. That was God stepping in, cutting ties you were too wounded to cut yourself. There are times when you may pray for change, for the narcissist to see the damage they're causing, to finally acknowledge the harm, or to become the person they pretend to be. But God's protection isn't about fixing someone else. It's about keeping you safe. It's about guiding you toward healing rather than keeping you stuck in a cycle of hoping for something that will never come. The narcissist thrives on making you believe you need them, that without them, you are nothing. But God stands in direct opposition to that lie. He reminds you that your worth was never defined by their approval. Your value is not tied to how well you can navigate their moods, their manipulation, or their expectations. And while the narcissist seeks control, God offers freedom, the kind that cannot be taken away no matter how hard they try. There will be moments of doubt. Moments when you wonder why God is allowing this pain, why the situation isn't changing, why it feels like they are winning. But protection doesn't always mean immediate relief. Sometimes it means endurance. It means being held together when everything is trying to break you. It means being given the strength to walk away, to rebuild, and to trust that even though the storm is raging, you are being carried safely through it. Resilience isn't something we're born with, it's something that's built. It's forged in the fires of adversity, strengthened by the very challenges meant to break us. When a narcissist comes into your life, whether in a relationship, a family dynamic, or even the workplace, they aim to weaken you. They chip away at your confidence, distort your reality, and manipulate your emotions, all in an effort to maintain control. But here's what they don't realize. Every attempt to tear you down is an opportunity for God to build you back up even stronger. God's grace doesn't just get you through difficult times. It transforms you in the midst of them. When you face deception, betrayal, or gaslighting, your initial reaction might be confusion, self-doubt, or even despair. That's normal. But God doesn't leave you there. He uses these experiences to refine you, to teach you discernment, to help you develop a strength that isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving. Think about the process of refining gold. It has to go through intense heat, melting away impurities before it reaches its purest form. That's what happens when you encounter a narcissist. At first, it feels like destruction, but in reality, it's a purification. You begin to see what's real and what's not. You recognize the unhealthy patterns you might have tolerated, the red flags you once ignored, and the ways in which you abandoned yourself to keep the peace. That clarity is a gift, even if it comes wrapped in pain. God's grace gives you resilience by shifting your perspective. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin to ask, what is this teaching me? The shift is subtle, but it's powerful. You stop seeing yourself as a victim and start recognizing yourself as someone who is being shaped for something greater. And while the narcissist wants you to believe you're powerless, you come to understand that you're not only capable of overcoming this, you're being prepared for something beyond what you can imagine. Resilience doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It doesn't mean you won't have days where you struggle to make sense of it all. It means that despite it all, you keep going. It means that you no longer depend on external validation to define your worth. It means that you learn to trust yourself again, to rebuild confidence in your own perceptions, and to believe that you are worthy of love, respect, and peace. And the most incredible thing about resilience through grace, it allows you to heal without becoming hardened. The world tells us that in order to protect ourselves, we have to put up walls, to never trust again, to become cynical. But God's way is different. He gives you wisdom without bitterness, strength without cruelty, boundaries without fear. He allows you to move forward, not as someone broken beyond repair, but as someone who has been refined, restored, and ready for the life he always intended for you. A narcissist thrives in deception. Their entire world is built on control, of perception, of people, of truth itself. They wear a mask that shows charm, confidence, and even kindness when it serves them. But underneath there is something else. A deep fear of being exposed, a desperate need to maintain their false self. And the more they feel that illusion slipping, the more they fight to hold it together. God, however, does not allow deception to reign forever. He is a God of truth, and truth by its very nature cannot be hidden indefinitely. The exposure of a narcissist's false self isn't always instant. It's not a dramatic moment of reckoning where everything collapses at once. Instead, it happens slowly, deliberately, like a house with a cracked foundation that eventually gives way. At first, the cracks are small. Maybe someone close to them begins to see inconsistencies in their words and actions. Maybe their control starts to weaken because they can no longer manipulate every aspect of their surroundings. Maybe the mask slips in a moment of anger or desperation, and for the first time, someone catches a glimpse of what lies beneath. God allows this exposure to happen in His timing, not ours. And that can be difficult. When you've been hurt, when you've been deceived, there's a part of you that wants justice now. You want people to see what you see. You want the world to understand the truth. But if the exposure happens too soon, when people aren't ready to see it, they may dismiss it. They may still believe the illusion. That's why God allows it to unravel piece by piece until there is no denying it anymore. And here's the key. When a narcissist's false self is exposed, it's not because you fought to prove them wrong. It's not because you argued or begged for people to see reality. It's because deception is unsustainable. A lie, no matter how well crafted, cannot stand forever. The more they try to maintain their illusion, the more cracks form. And eventually, their own actions become the very thing that reveals them. This process isn't just about exposing them, it's about freeing you. When someone has manipulated and controlled you, it's easy to believe that their version of reality is the only one that exists. That's part of their power. But when their mask starts to slip, you begin to see it differently. You realize that what you felt wasn't in your head, that the doubt, the confusion, the exhaustion, you weren't imagining it. And in that moment, something shifts. You reclaim your sense of truth. God's justice is not about revenge. It's about alignment. When someone builds their life on lies, they will eventually collapse under the weight of their own deception. And when that happens, you will already be standing in a place of clarity, healing, and strength. Because while they were busy holding together a mask, God was busy restoring the real you. What feels like destruction is often divine redirection. That's a hard truth to grasp when you're in the middle of chaos, when someone you trusted is twisting reality, rewriting history, and making you feel like you are the problem. A narcissist operates through control of your perception, control of your emotions, control of your self-worth. And when you begin to resist that control, when you start seeing through the illusion, their grip tightens. They lash out. They manipulate harder. They create more chaos. It can feel like your world is being pulled apart. But what if that unraveling isn't destruction? What if it's God removing you from something that was never meant to hold you? There are times when we mistake attachment for purpose. We hold on to relationships, jobs, environments, and dynamics that feel familiar, even when they are harmful. We tell ourselves that we just need to try harder, be more understanding, forgive more quickly. And while grace is important, God never asks us to lose ourselves to save someone else. A narcissist thrives on the idea that you won't walk away, that your loyalty, your empathy, your deep desire to make things work will keep you stuck. And for a while it might, but then something happens. The very thing they do to try to break you becomes the thing that wakes you up. Maybe it's a betrayal that cuts too deep. Maybe it's a moment where you see them lie so effortlessly that you finally understand their pattern. Maybe it's the realization that no matter how much you love them, they will never change. Whatever it is, it shakes you. It makes you question everything. And in that questioning, there is a shift. You start to understand that this pain is not here to destroy you. It's here to move you. God is not punishing you by allowing the storm. He is redirecting you towards something greater. That narcissist may have convinced you that you need them, that you aren't capable without them, that your worth is tied to their validation. But God is stripping those lies away. He is revealing who you are without their influence. Stronger, wiser, capable, whole. The pain they caused is real. The betrayal is real. But what they meant for harm, God is using for growth. You are being led to a space where you don't have to shrink yourself to be accepted. where you don't have to second guess your reality, where you don't have to fight for the bare minimum. When you finally walk away physically, emotionally, spiritually, you step into a version of yourself that they never wanted you to see. Because a narcissist does not want you healed. They do not want you empowered. But that's exactly what God is doing. So when everything feels like it's falling apart, consider the possibility that it's actually coming together. The loss, the heartbreak, the confusion, it's all part of the redirection. And where you are going, they were never meant to follow. When someone wounds us deeply, especially a narcissist, the first instinct is often to fight back, to prove them wrong, to expose them, to make sure the world sees what they've done. But the hard truth is, healing isn't about proving anything to anyone. It isn't about making them feel the pain they inflicted. It isn't even about getting justice in the way we imagine it. Healing is about reclaiming yourself. It's about stepping away from the damage they caused and choosing something different, choosing yourself, choosing God, choosing growth. A narcissist thrives on control. Every insult, every manipulation, every lie is designed to keep you trapped in their reality. They want you to react, to engage, to lose yourself in the chaos they create. Because as long as you're focused on them, you're not focused on your own healing. That's the cycle. The moment you fight back in anger, the moment you seek revenge, they've still got you. They still have influence over your emotions, your thoughts, your peace. But here's where God's wisdom is different from the world's advice. The world tells you to seek revenge, to expose them, to make sure they get what they deserve. But God calls you towards something much harder, much deeper, healing. Not because the narcissist deserves your forgiveness, but because you deserve your freedom. Holding on to resentment is like carrying a heavy chain, expecting it to weigh them down. The reality, it only holds you back. God knows how hard it is to let go of the desire for justice. He sees the betrayal, the pain, the nights you lay awake replaying every conversation, every red flag you ignored. He knows the anger that rises when they move on as if nothing happened while you're left picking up the pieces. But he also knows something you can't always see yet, what's waiting for you on the other side of healing. Healing means no longer needing an apology that will never come. It means accepting that they may never see the truth, and that's okay because their recognition isn't where your worth comes from. It means learning to trust again, not because they deserve it, but because you refuse to let their actions define your future. Healing isn't about excusing what they did. It's about refusing to let it shape who you become. And here's the most powerful part. When you focus on healing instead of revenge, God fights the battles you were never meant to carry. The narcissist may continue their patterns, but their power over you is gone. You stop being their puppet. You stop giving them space in your mind, your heart, your soul. You reclaim your peace. God's justice doesn't always look like what we expect, but it is always right, always fair, and always in his perfect timing. And the greatest justice of all, a life lived in freedom, untouched by the chains of someone else's brokenness. Letting go isn't about giving up. It isn't about losing. It isn't about weakness. Letting go is one of the most courageous, powerful acts of trust you will ever experience. Because when you've been hurt by a narcissist, when you've been lied to, manipulated, and made to question your own reality, The natural response is to hold on, to fight for justice, to demand accountability, to make them see the damage they've caused. You want them to understand. You want them to acknowledge. You want them to feel for once the weight of what they've done. But here's the truth. They won't. Not in the way you want them to. A narcissist does not give closure, because closure would require honesty. It would require self-awareness. It would require humility. And the very nature of narcissism prevents all of that. So you end up trapped in a cycle of waiting for them to validate your pain, waiting for them to change, waiting for the moment when they finally realize what they lost. And in that waiting, you give them power they should have never had. That's why letting go is so important. It's not about erasing what happened. It's not about pretending you weren't hurt. It's about refusing to let that pain define you anymore. It's about stepping away from the chaos they created and choosing peace, even if that peace feels unfamiliar at first. Because here's what happens when you truly let go. You create space for healing, space for clarity, space for relationships that don't require you to shrink yourself or prove your worth over and over again. God doesn't ask you to let go because he wants you to ignore the hurt. He asks you to let go because he knows that what's ahead is better than what's behind. He knows that your spirit wasn't meant to live in a constant state of proving, defending, and justifying. He knows that by releasing what's toxic, you're making room for what's true. It's not easy. There will be moments when you want to reach back, to argue one more time, to make them see what they refuse to see. But every time you choose to let go instead, you're reclaiming your energy. You're stepping into a version of yourself that is no longer controlled by someone else's projections. You're making a declaration that your worth isn't up for debate. And something remarkable happens when you do that. The weight lifts. The mental fog clears. The anxiety that once consumed you starts to fade. And slowly you begin to see yourself again. Not as the person they tried to break, but as the person who refused to be destroyed. The person who chose healing over bitterness. Peace over chaos, freedom over control. The person who walked away not because they lost, but because they finally understood they had nothing left. There comes a moment when you realize that the battle you've been fighting isn't yours to fight anymore. You've spent so much time trying to prove, trying to be seen, trying to get justice. But God is reminding you that true justice doesn't come from forcing someone to change. It comes from stepping into the life he has for you, free from their control. God never intended for you to live in the grip of someone else's manipulation. He never asked you to carry the weight of someone else's brokenness. What he asks is that you trust him. Trust that he will reveal the truth in his time. Trust that he will bring healing where there was once hurt. Trust that he will restore everything you thought you lost. The greatest victory is not in making them see what they've done. The greatest victory is in knowing that what they did no longer has power over you. You are not who they said you were. You are not defined by their lies, their cruelty, or their inability to love you the way you deserved. You are defined by God's love, his grace, and his plan for your life. So today, choose to let go. Choose to rise above. choose to walk forward, not in fear, not in anger, but in the unshakable confidence that God is fighting for you, even when you can't yet see the battle being won.